Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. TerraPlex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from TerraPlex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with TerraPlex Ag. Visit TerraPlexAg.com.
July the 7th, 2024. Welcome to Williams and Blum Sunday, and it's here. It is it's officially football season. 4th of July means the summer's over, in my opinion. My name is Chris Williams, joined as always by Brent Blum. We are in the Wild Rose Casino Studios here, presented as always by our friends at Mechdyne, the wonderful Mechdyne Corporation. Check them out at mechdyne.com, MECHDYNE.com, enabling discovery. We are also presented, as always, by our friends over at Cody Road Bourbon in LeClaire, and we will be heading out to LeClaire on the 16th of August this year, and we'll be sharing that link with you guys. This is always one of our favorite nights of the year when we get to go to Eastern Iowa. We will be at the Mississippi River Distilling Company on the 16th of August. So for those of you Eastern Iowa Cyclones, get your tickets now. How are you, Blum? You've been up in Northwest Iowa for the festivities. How's everything going for you?
Southern Minnesota, Northern Iowa. No, it's good. It had 4th of July stuff, and then my wife's 20th high school reunion, which was interesting.
That's scary.
At the old Ringstead Community Center. But yeah,
so we find a better place than that.
Well, it's free, I guess. In the old Ringstead bar catered. It was actually really good food. It was anyway.
Well, yeah, them small town folks, they know how to do the catering.
Hey, people know how to have a good time in Ringstead, Iowa. I'll tell you that much. But no, it was fun. Got nice to get away for a couple days. But I am super excited on the drive home. I'm like, all right, it's football season now. Like we're diving in. It is now time that this feels like it's football time.
I'm glad you're excited. I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's gonna be an exciting year. I'm super fascinated by this conference this year.
I don't disagree with that. I was actually just explaining it to Ashley, like the 16 teams compared to 10.
Right.
Going to Las Vegas instead of Dallas, like I've done for 20 years in a row. It seems like all my equilibrium's all mixed up with this league right now. I really have done a ton of research throughout the weekend just to kind of get my bearings straight before I arrive in Vegas on Monday afternoon. And I do feel like I have a pretty good handle on the league. Obviously, we do this for a living, so we don't ever let it too far out of our minds. But yeah, I mean, the league. We talked about this. The quarterbacks in this league are really fascinating. It's up and down the roster.
Super crazy, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today is I had to go through. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy's there, and that guy's there.
Remember Gary Bohannon?
Yeah, he's the BYU quarterback. Yeah. That stunned me when I was looking at that. But
I was jotting down notes, and I wrote down Gary Bohannon in capital letters because I was like, that guy is still here.
Well, there's two Iowa State killers on this list from random places, which we'll get into.
The Texas Tech guy is at Houston.
He's at Houston now. Yeah. He was the quarterback of that 78-yard field goal.
Yeah. Game. Oh yeah, who can remember that frickin' day? Absolutely.
Remember when they kicked out the student section and they all just moved over a section?
They were like throwing like tacos onto the field. What a terrible day.
Yeah, that was a wild one. But so what's crazy?
Donovan Smith is his name.
Donovan Smith. No Texas, no Oklahoma, and you got to know them pretty well because the media talked about them all the time. And now with these new schools, I've had to be like, okay, who does Arizona State have? What does Arizona have? See, half of the schools are new in the last year, if you think about it that way, because you had 4 new ones last year, 4 new ones this year. Half your league is brand new, so. This is why, if you're a fan, you're going, I don't know anything about these teams. Well, it makes sense because we got used to, in that 10-team league, you played everybody every year, even with the portal, even with everything else, you had a pretty idea of what people had. And this year is the total, maybe more than any other year that we've ever covered, a total toss-up. And the quarterbacks are a good reason why, because I think the quarterback position is super deep in this league, but it's also like, wait a second, who's there again? So it makes for an interesting conversation.
Even one, like, to me that I'm really interested in Baylor.
Yes.
With this kid from Toledo, Finn. Yeah. He was really good at Toledo. And then, of course, Aranda, fires his whole staff, and now he's going, like, totally, like, spread. Like, they're not even going to look the same. And then, he's calling the plays on defense. Like, I kind of feel like they may the other one that is TCU a little bit to me. It's like I feel like they revert a little bit. I don't think that they're a 5-7 team.
I totally agree.
Like they were last year. They got like 15, 16 starters back, and then they get a shit ton of transfers down there. I don't know. Like the weird Alan Bowman is back for what, his 7th year?
It's the Jeff Settles plan. Yeah, it's the Jeff Settles plan for Bowman.
7 years for him. And then you've got these 3 Pac-12 quarterbacks. Well, and I didn't mention Garrett Green, who is pretty good. We think at West Virginia. We think he's going to
hit an unbelievably good year last year.
We think that he's pretty good. Jalen Daniels got the injury thing, but we know who he is. But then, I mean, you add Cam Rising, Shadir Sanders, and then Fifita. Noah Fifita from Arizona. And, yeah, it's a really sexy league when it comes to quarterbacks. And not only that, just I think some pretty bright offensive minds with how these guys are going to get used.
Totally agree. And this is why I think this will be a good exercise. Let's go down. I'm just pulling up. This is not our rankings. This is 247 Sports rankings from a month ago. But it helps set the table for what these teams have. And I think this is going to be outside of the Your Mark press conference. This quarterback discussion really gives you an idea of this is a total anybody's ball game type situation. So the quarterbacks are kind of ranked based on where people are envisioning these schools finish based on the preseason poll as well. Very one-to-one related here. So we'll start and we'll go through them. The 16th rated starting quarterback in the conference this year is Gary Bohannon at BYU, formerly of Baylor, beat Iowa State in 2021, and he's transferring to BYU from South Florida, where he played quite a bit last year for our
guy
buddy
Alex Golish.
Alex Golish, yeah.
And that's what's weird about this Bohannon is that he's been at places that I've cared about. So I feel, I watched him a little bit last year, and I'm like, wow, he's at BYU now. But he's capable.
They're very capable, and the BYU is one of those programs that's like, well, they're picked to finish like last or second to last, but they're one of those programs where if they're old enough, they figure it out. Their quarterback play was not very good last year, so I'm interested to see if Bohannon shores that up. Their defense can stop the run. Maybe they're a little better. 15th, Sam Levitt at Arizona State. I like Arizona State's coach. I think Dillingham is an up-and-comer for sure. They got a lot of things stacked against them. Of course, they lost Jalen Rashada, who was the guy that Florida gave, $8 million to an NIL. He's now a backup at Georgia, I believe.
He's the guy who was in that lawsuit we were talking about.
Yes.
A couple months ago.
But they added a transfer late in Jeff Sims, who started at Georgia Tech, then started games at Nebraska last year.
Yes. Sims.
So Arizona State, again, I think they're probably at the bottom of the league for a reason, but that's the one school I don't know a whole lot about. 14th on the list.
We got 14.
I'll get one more. Scroll through some of these.
These are not that interesting.
Yeah, Brendan Sorsby's the quarterback at Cincinnati. Transfer from Indiana, was a 4-star recruit. Played okay there. 13th, Josh Hoover at TCU. He's the one who came in the Iowa State game in the second half and didn't do much against Iowa State. However, he ended the year on a complete heater.
Yeah, I feel like he may be a little underappreciated here at 13.
I totally agree. We'll just scroll through these other ones. Baron Morton at Texas Tech. There are some people who think he's the best in the league, and he's 12th based on this ranking. One of the most highly decorated quarterbacks to go to Tech, and he got a lot of playing time last year after some injury situations with the Red Raiders. And I think Texas Tech is one of those teams seed up. If he can figure it out and be consistent, I think they got a bunch of dudes. I really do. I think Texas Tech and TCU would be those two programs that are picked, 8, 9, 10, that I would take a run at for sure.
Yeah. I feel like I would throw Baylor on that list too. I don't think that they have the high-end potential that TCU and Texas Tech do, but Baylor feels a lot to me like West Virginia last year, where everybody's kind of counted them out now.
True.
And
yep.
I mean, Aranda's not an idiot. Like he's not going to have the high-end success that Art Briles did there, but I just feel like this is like you see these programs often when you leave them for dead, and then the athletic director keeps them around, and then they kind of sometimes it's the dead cat bounce, right?
Yep.
But I feel like we get that in some form. And you know better than anyone that Baylor's pretty good with the NIL deal too. So like they're funded.
Well, and on that front, this Daquan Finn is going to be the new quarterback for them, 2023 MAC Player of the Year.
Yeah, so what does that mean? Like does that translate? I don't know.
He can make plays though.
Yeah,
and I think that's the thing. He's a runner and a thrower. And what I would say about Baylor last year is they were very one-dimensional. It was like their quarterbacks,
they were bad. That was
bad on offense. Yeah.
I would loosely compare it to. Y'all know my opinion on Iowa State in 21 with how they ran the offense. I thought it was too conservative, too tight, too many tight ends. It feels like Baylor felt the same way, and that they're getting away from that. Who knows if they had the players? We'll find out. But the other 11 is Bowman.
Yes,
from Oklahoma State, and again, this is his 7th year. Is there a weirder team in 2023 than Oklahoma State was?
No, remember when Iowa State beat them? They're like, "Oh, that team was horrible."
Our fans were pissed
we
after
only
that
won
win
by like a touchdown.
I remember doing post game, and it was like, oh God, that team just lost to South Alabama, and they almost pulled this thing off. Like we were pissed after that, after a win, and then they rattle off how many in a row, and I just wonder, like, was that a mirage? Will they go down a little bit?
I wonder that too. I think they got some first place votes. I like Gundy. I know you like Gundy. Respect.
I love Gundy. Yeah.
I have a hard time thinking they're finished in the top 4. I really do. I think Bowman's a nice player. I think he's accurately ranked here at 11, honestly. And
Isn't
I just
that crazy?
don't know. It is. I mean, he's 11th, and he's been around forever.
Yeah.
So shows you the depth here.
He's like mid-20s.
Yeah, he's got to be really old. Let's see how old.
He ain't Chris Winkie, I can tell you that.
He started at Tech. He played Alan Bowman. This is 100% true. Alan Bowman played in Jack Trice in 2018 for Texas.
So he's played for Cliff Kingsbury, Jim Harbaugh, and now Mike Gundy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow.
That's correct. Yeah, he's 24.
So he started with Kingsbury, right?
With Kingsbury. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he started that game. Iowa State beat them in 2018 at Jack Trice Stadium. He started for Texas Tech as a true freshman that year.
Yeah,
he's 11th.
I remember that.
He's 11th. He's ranked 11th by 247 in the league. I think Oklahoma State's I'm with you. I'm buying TCU, and I'm buying me some Texas Tech. I'm going to sell Oklahoma State. I'm just early impressions here.
Yeah.
At number 10, one of these Cyclone killers, Donovan Smith, now at Houston, had a really good year. He's 10th. He is on NFL draft boards because of his size and arm strength. Yeah.
Real quick comment. So they got a new coach, and Fritz is going to completely rebuild everything there. There's not going to be any resemblance of Dana Holgerson under Willie Fritz. But real quick smidge of analysis, probably better to get them early in the year.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree? Like Iowa State does? Like, doesn't that feel like a team that – like Fritz has won everywhere he's ever coached. That a little bit like Campbell's first year, where boy, Iowa State was a mess in late September, but they were a respectable football team at the beginning of November. I kind of feel like Houston is on that trajectory.
I totally agree. I'm looking at let me look at their non-conference real quick because I think that's interesting. So they play UNLV at home on the first Saturday. Then they go to Oklahoma. Ouch. And then Rice at home at Cincinnati before playing Iowa State. You're right, C-Dub. That team might be 1-3 heading into the game against Iowa State. And you wonder how much confidence they have at that point.
I bet Iowa State's a 2-touchdown favorite in that game.
I wouldn't be shocked because I do think they're going to get blown out potentially by Oklahoma. And then what do they have left? I bet they lose at Cincinnati as well. And so you go in there. I mean, that's going to be an interesting spot. I mean, just circling September 28th. But you're right. I would rather play them in September than November. I think that's a program that's going to get better as the year goes on. Because always the one knock on Houston was never the talent level. It was the discipline and the, ability to maintain. And I think once Fritz installs that, they're going to be, I may not want to play him September 28th if they had figured it out by then. I think they're a fascinating story within this entire league, which will be fascinating.
Want to thank a couple quick sponsors, and we'll get back to this list. First of all, our buddy Colin Newell with Farm Bureau Financial Services. I hear from people all the time who have made the switch. Colin's saving them hundreds. In my case, he saved me personally right around $1,000 a year, and I got better coverage across the board. I recently had a flood in my basement. I'm glad I made that switch because, like most people, I hadn't been checking in on my coverage and all that stuff, and deals change and things improve. Colin saved me a ton of money this year with all of that. Colin Newell Colin Newell Insurance with Farm Bureau Financial Services. Also, on that same note, our guy Andrew Chaplin. I've known Chappie forever. In fact, Chappie, this is how good of a guy he is. He bought me a Razor Ramon Scott Hall silk, like button-up shirt. He bought me this last football season, and I wore it over the weekend. Yeah, walked around with my chest hair hanging out like Razor Ramon. That's the type of guy you're dealing with Andrew Chaplin. How do they find him, Blum? And he can sell your house, buy your house all over the state of Iowa.
Absolutely. Best ways to contact Andrew is cell phone 515-460-6454. Or if you're bored and you're killing time at work and who wants to work on a Monday after a long holiday, go to his website, andrew.hunzikerrealty.com. And that's Hunziker, HUNZIKER, realty.com. And he's got some good spots right there in Ames. CW, want to move to Ames?
No, I'm not moving. No. I'm not moving. Zero chance I'm moving.
But he'll help if you do need to move. If something happened, he will help you
call
out.
Andrew.
Yeah, call Andrew.
Call Chappie. Hey, speaking of pro wrestling, we've got a deal. So we have a busy week. I'm on a flight to Vegas tomorrow. I'm coming back. So just full disclosure with our audience, I am not staying for the second day of Big 12 Media Days. Iowa State goes on day one. Your Mark is on day one. Day two is always that ridiculous officials thing where the guy gets up there and he gets super defensive because none of the writers understand the rules. And then the writers, why do you hate football? What are you trying to take away hits above the
the good news, C-Dub,
disaster.
At least the one question that is always asked that won't be this year is the horns down situation.
Oh, my God. Yes. Anyways, I'm coming back Wednesday. The flight situation out of Vegas is always the most disturbing thing. It's so hard to get a good flight out of there, and I got a direct, and I'm getting the hell out of there. So, point being, I got an event for our buddy Jack Whitfer on Thursday night. Then we have Rocco Beck's camp that we will be doing a live show from on Saturday morning in Perry, which this is going to be incredible. Really, really looking forward to that. I believe Anthony Beck is going to be on live with us, and I know a handful of players. Of course, we'll have Rocco on too, but we will be live in the morning at 9:30. So
on the stream,
that means
right?
On the stream, yeah, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, where you can watch the show live. Of course, it'll be on demand too. But Blum and I will be there Saturday. A lot of the day we will be in Perry, and then we are heading from Perry back to Bondurant, where we will have our first ever Williams and Blum Promotions pro wrestling event in Bondurant for our charity that we're a part of, Living Ava's Way, where we raise money for, it's all local kids who either have gone through cancer, that somebody in their family's gone through cancer, and we try and help them out. We do it in honor of our friend Ava, who passed away a few years back at the way too young age of 11. But our buddies over at Impact Pro Wrestling, we have 2 world championship matches, Bloom. Two world championship matches Saturday night in Bondurant.
We get to see the big picture in action.
The big picture is in action. Now, here's a little hint for you guys. The CEO, Conrad Hawley, is going to be in attendance.
Oh, buddy.
Courtesy of the We Will Collective. Okay, this is a charity event. Conrad Hawley is going to be in the house signing autographs, taking pictures, and I believe you're working on some Iowa State football players who will potentially be there as well. And I have let the folks from Impact Pro Wrestling know that the CEO is going to be in the house. And if there's any anti-Iowa State shit up on that stage, the CEO may rip his shirt off and run out into the ring and body slam somebody. So I wanted to let everybody know that is very possible. We're going to start at 5. Wrestling starts at 7. But we're going to have your wife lined up a face painter for kids. We've got donkeys walking around with beer. Our friends at Reclaimed Rails they're doing the beer for it. No, Crystal lined up a donkey that walks around and you buy a beer from the donkey and it'll like hand you the Ames lager out of its mouth.
Yeah, I'm honestly I'm looking forward to the big picture. Is that
the big picture? He's the Impact Pro Wrestling champion.
The donkey with the beers it's going to be hard to top that at that
This
point.
is all in Bondurant. It's going to be a free will donation. You come out to the Brick House Fitness. It's the it's like a courtyard area back there. It's going to be a party, but we're raising money. A lot of great sponsors who have helped us out. Our friends at Plaza RV, we're all over that. Liebel Marketing Group, Next Step Advertising. I know I'm forgetting some people here. Oh, Channel Seed. Our friends over at Channel Seed chipped in to help us pay for this. Dustin Fouch over there at Fouch Agri Services. So, it's cool to watch everybody chip in to raise money for a great cause. So I know we ask a lot out of our listeners, but I think this could be fun night for the kids.
Absolutely. And so this is why I love Cyclone Nation. I love this podcast. I got a text on Friday from one of our listeners who have gotten to know a little bit in the last year. He's also been very generous, and he's gonna make a nice donation to. He's from Illinois. He can't make the wrestling event, but he's gonna send in a nice donation in honor of our podcast for Living Ava's Way.
That's so cool,
and just a wonderful guy, Greg. If you're listening, appreciate you very much.
Yes, thank you, Greg. That's awesome, and every little bit counts, and it will be a really, really fun night. So I would say if you don't have anything to do. I don't believe that the Rocco thing is open to the public, right? I've had people ask me. It is not. Yeah, I have had people ask me about that, and that's a deal where it's basically for kids in Perry, right?
Yeah, and that's why. It's not that we don't want. It's just this is for 3rd to 7th graders in Perry, and we're trying to.
They've had a rough year.
Yeah, we don't want it to be just a major spectacle of just and nothing. Not that these guys wouldn't sign autographs and things, but we want the focus to be on the kids of Perry, not on the other stuff.
And I know Rocco has been very adamant about wanting to do the camp. It's not like a dog and pony show for him. Like he's like, no, I'm going to be on the field. Helping these kids get better at football, that's the focus here,
and that it's just neat. I mean, it's the entire Beck family. So they're both mom and dad are going to be there, and they're super proud of Rocco as they should be. I'm super proud of Rocco. I mean, this is all his idea, and certainly they'll probably be we'll be there. There'll be some media attention for it, but that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because he really wanted to help, and as mentioned before. Not only is he putting on this camp for free for these kids, he's also making a very nice donation to the Perry athletic funds as well, or the Perry Community Schools, one of the two. I don't know exactly where it's going yet, but he's putting his money where his actions speak as well. And I can't tell you how amazing of a kid that Rocco is, and the entire Beck family. We're just blessed to have him at Iowa State.
I heard a rumbling on the size of that check, and that's going to be pretty impressive if everything falls through the way.
This is not
with the sign-ups, and that's pretty cool.
This is not, a $10 Venmo donation after a made field goal. I mean, this which we're still for, by the way. I like those. But no, it's Rocco literally with an unbelievable act of kindness and generosity.
And with that, let's move back to our
perfect
quarterback
timing.
conversation. Where so we already talked about Dequan Finn, Baylor,
they have him at 9,
Toledo transfer, and then Rocco at number 8. And the interesting, there's a few guys rated ahead of him. Where would you take Avery Johnson at Kansas State? He's at number 7, and KJ Jefferson, UCF, who's a portal guy.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rank them ahead of Rocco, having seen what we've seen, or is that strictly – I mean, the Avery Johnson thing is what they think he can be.
Correct.
What do you think of Rocco being behind those two guys?
This is what's really hard because it's like all these guys above him. I would – again, I'm selfish or biased. I like Rocco. I think what Rocco is not all in the numbers for him. And by the way, the numbers were really good last year. Like he broke a bunch of freshman records. He was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. He hit the Iowa State record for most passing yards in a game in the bowl game. He's really good. He's only going to be better this year with more talent. If you would pick Rocco over Avery Johnson, the K-State fans would go crazy because they think that guy's the second.
And to be fair, the theory is that Avery Johnson was going to beat out
Howard,
who's at Ohio State.
Yeah, who might be the starter for Ohio State. So,
yeah, I mean, so
I understand.
Yeah.
And then KJ Jefferson was a multi-year starter at Arkansas and is considered one of the best gets in the portal. So
this is an Iowa State conversation too, because they go 2 Ames, and I can almost say like this
UCF.
Kid's gonna, yeah. But UCF, they're at Iowa State this year. Like, keep an eye on this guy for the first 5 weeks because that's really going to tell you a lot about Central Florida, right?
Yeah, I mean, when he was good, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. When he was bad, he's throwing a bunch of interceptions and throwing turn. But I think it's a unique partnership. Malzahn's a pretty good offensive guy, clearly.
Correct.
You put a talent like Jefferson who has NFL ability with that system, and they brought in a bunch of dudes. UCF is, again, one of those teams you're like, gosh, I don't know. But the high end may be pretty high for them, including KJ Jefferson. So, I would probably pick Rocco over KJ if I'm just ranking them. But at the same time, I'm not – this is really hard. This is why it's difficult. I mean, you had Bowman, who had a really good year last year at 11 in this thing. So it's a fun exercise. So we got Johnson at 7. KJ Jefferson from UCF at 6. And then, they have Garrett Green at 5. And I don't know if I'd put Green at 5, but his stats were really good last year.
I was just going to ask you, just do the blind Garrett Green, Rocco Beck. You can have one to lead your team.
I'm taking Rocco.
I think I would too in that one.
But he did have
Johnson's a conversation to me. Like that one's like, yeah, like I get it, like what they think he could be and like what he's shown behind the scenes, like top end. But like I don't know. But having said that, didn't Pro Football Focus say that he's like Garrett Green's the most like underrated guy in the country or something like that?
Yeah, so, and it's not just because of his throwing ability. He's not an accurate passer. He was 53% last year. He's a big play guy, though, and he ran for like 800 yards on the ground and like another 10 touchdowns. So he is very much a good fit for West Virginia just because a lot of times their offense wasn't doing anything. It was just like, Green, just make a play. And so I think I wouldn't put him at 5. I would take Rocco over Green, but I can see why his numbers say he's underrated based on his production on both the air and the ground.
I'll tell you what, I would take Iowa State's skill players around the quarterbacks.
Yes,
over
and that's
what Green has.
Well, I think what
even probably Kansas State too.
Right. Watching this in a charity softball game, you can't get a lot of conclusions. I didn't realize how You can't. But Rocco
That's
moves.
some analysis coming right here.
Rocco moves really well. Like he is. I think that gets lost a little bit. Like he does have the ability to make plays with his legs. He didn't do it a lot, but he can.
The day I spent a little bit of time with him in Ames for that interview we did, you know, these kids now, they all wear like short shorts.
Yes.
I couldn't help but be like, God, he has massive legs. I'm serious. Like Rocco, like he has tree trunks. There, it looks a lot like Purdy.
Very similar.
The way he's shaped.
Yep.
Like I don't know.
Yeah, so they just posted this week. Rocco was at the Manning Passing Academy, which is really cool. I mean, that's the elite of the elite, and he handled himself very well out there. So,
not surprised.
I think Rocco, Rocco's still not known as much nationally as some of these other guys, like the next guy we're going to talk about in Jalen Daniels at Kansas. But there's nothing, in my opinion, saying that Rocco can't be better than Jalen Daniels at Kansas. And I think that's where, Daniels is still somewhat C-Dub, and they have him at 4 here on these rankings. He's living off 2 years ago, and this is where it's interesting. Both 4 and 3, Daniels and Cam Rising at Utah, who's ranked 3 in this list, didn't play much last year. And we'll see. I mean, Rising is coming off a significant injury. Mm-hmm. And so it's I would say if you would just ask just a Joe Schmo off the street, who's the best quarterback in the Big 12, they'll probably say Cam Rising. They have him at 3 here because the injury concerns are still a concern.
Daniels showed up at media days last year with that Apple Watch playing his highlights on a gold chain. Remember when I said I'm selling this? Remember, this is not going to turn out well. Like, that's not a good look.
What happened with their backup, Bean? Because Bean was awesome last year. Is he still there?
No, I think he's out of eligibility.
Maybe
you'll have to.
Yeah, he's with the Colts now. He's with the Colts.
He's not.
If I'm Kansas, that's a concern. Daniels has never been healthy.
But that deal was weird. I remember talking to some Kansas media guys before that game in Ames last year, and that whole thing was weird then. It's like, what's going on with Daniels? And like nobody could put a finger on it, but nobody seemed to that, or they just didn't want to tell me. But everybody seemed really like quiet about it, and it was weird. Like something was going on behind the scenes.
The rumor was he could have potentially come back at some point, but Bean was playing really well, which is a factor. But the second thought was he was protecting his 4 games so he could potentially transfer again. Or transfer, I should say. He hasn't transferred.
Yeah, I figured it's something to do with that. Okay.
But anyway, we talked about here, Kansas's NIL game is maybe the best in the conference. It may be, honestly. For not just basketball.
But they don't have a home field this year, which has to be some sort of a factor.
It could be. It's a great point. I mean,
you think like Iowa State going there or at Arrowhead where there'll be more Iowa State fans.
That's the great point. Iowa State does play them in Arrowhead. It's going to be fit. I bet there's more Iowa State fans there to that.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
But I would say I think Daniels had a great year 2 years ago. I'm not sure I put him as high on this list, but I understand why you have to put him there because he was getting some legitimate like borderline Heisman before last year.
He's one of the 2 or 3 guys on this list that could be a Heisman winner if everything plays
goes. But if I'm Kansas, I'm nervous. I don't know what their backup situation is, but Bean really bailed them out last year because that could have got sideways for them if he wasn't there.
So then there's
Fafita. Go ahead.
I think Noah Fafita at Arizona is a really good player. My question here, and I don't know. We've talked a little bit about Arizona. I think that they're probably the most overrated team in the league. But he's a really high-end guy. They have high-end offensive starters. Like I'm not denying that. I am curious about their depth. I think that a guy like Fafita, Jed Fish is a really good quarterbacks coach and an offensive guy. This guy from San Jose State, maybe he will be. I don't know. I think it's always hard when you switch leagues. Now, the Arizona people and the Pac-12 people will say that this league is easier than the one they played in last year, and you're probably right. That was a really good Pac-12, right? Like
it was.
but the scouting thing, like their schedule's not bad. I misspoke. Their game against Kansas State is a non-conference game.
Yeah, it was an existing game before the conference gets going.
I like Fafita. I think he's fine. I'm worried if I'm him. I'm concerned about my depth and the whole new league thing as far as reaching what we did last year. I think they take a step back.
Yeah, I
would whatever their win total is, I would play the under, and I don't even know what it is.
Interestingly, Fafita and McMillan, who's their stud wide receiver, McMillan in particular is a potential top 15 NFL pick this year.
Mm-hmm.
High end guy, and they kept them both, which was a huge win for their new staff. But I'm with you,
which is really shocking that they were able to do that. So this new guy has got some juice to him,
for sure. And actually, we have a listener who has some connections to the Arizona head coach. So he said, "Hey, if you need some insight, let me know." So anyway,
we would love it.
We got listeners everywhere. We got listeners
Bring
everywhere. Yeah, I think Arizona. It's one of those teams that could start really hot, and then we'll see where they are in November. And this Fafita is Pac-12 freshman of the year last year, so similar to Rocco, except in the Pac-12. He's small though, 5'10", 5'11", so. You just wonder. It's not that not that Pac-12 isn't physical. It is. It's just this is a little different step for them. And do they have the ability to grind through a 9-game Big 12 schedule will be the question. Which leads us to number one. And your guy,
Shedeur Sanders.
Shedeur Sanders, the number 1 ranked quarterback in the league. And I was shocked, seat up. Maybe I've just my head's buried in the sand. There are people as potentially number 1 overall pick in the NFL next year. Shedeur.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, I'm glad they're in the Big 12.
I am too.
It makes it interesting. And yeah, I mean, just on pure individual talent, you probably should put him number 1. I would think.
Well, interesting. The Colorado will have 2 top 10 picks in the NFL draft this year. Both him and then Hunter.
But they could still be 5 and 7.
I think they will be.
I mean, what did they? How many transfers did they bring? They're kind of in the exact same spot that they were.
Well, they allowed like 35 sacks last year. A completely new offensive line, which leads to one of my favorite jokes. I got good news and bad news.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually the other way around. Good news is our whole offensive line is back. The bad news is our whole offensive line is back.
I think I read 23 transfers.
Yeah, it's a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll work. I think that's hard. If you're not doing it at LSU or it may be Dion. I don't know. Maybe this guy can do it in Boulder. They didn't look well coached most of the year.
Especially in the second half once they got some injuries.
Yeah, and they were just getting shit pounded in those games too. Remember that Oregon game?
Right. They just non-competitive.
And then every week they'd be like the Fox game of the week, and Fox would be like, "This is the game of the year. Yeah. It's one that everybody wants to see."
And it's 40 to
49 to nothing. Yeah, come on. So, listen, I'm glad he's in the league. I wish Iowa State played Colorado. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to see that.
I'd like to see him in Ames.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. I was bummed when the schedule came out and that wasn't on there. They're not doing it the way I like it. Maybe I'm too old school. I didn't like his whatever he did at like UCLA or whatever last year when he was bragging about his cars to the student section. It's like, come on, dude, you were born on 3rd. This Colorado program is not for me. But I'm glad they're in the Big 12 because they are interesting and it will make people watch this league. And at the end of the day, I'm a Big 12 guy and I want what's best for the league. So
this is if there's a year to have Colorado, it's this year. They are going to get all sorts of attention. Interesting, seat up their non-conference, super dicey. North Dakota State at home on a Thursday night,
which they could lose.
Yeah, they could lose.
I don't think they will, but they could lose that game.
Agreed. At Nebraska on Saturday.
They will be a Nebraska. I think will be pretty good this year. I don't know their schedule, but I think Rule's a pretty good coach. I think that hey, I'm going to tell you, my birdie Fred Hoiberg really likes the Nebraska football team this year.
Does he like Matt Rule? Because then I don't know if I can like Fred if he likes Matt Rule.
I think he likes Matt Rule. I talked to Fred in like April, and we were just kind of bullshitting, and he loves that quarterback, that Ryota or whatever his name is.
Well, yeah.
He's like, dude, that guy's really good. This is straight really from the mayor. This is really what the mayor told me. I am just passing along information.
Buddy,
we have a first-hand source on the ground in Lincoln.
You spend $2 million on a freshman, he better be pretty good.
I think Nebraska under Rule will be like a consistent 8-4 team. Will their fans be okay with that? I don't know. They ain't getting back to where they were. I'm not making that projection. But they needed some stability in the worst way, and I think Rule is like that guy.
Interestingly, the day they play UNI this year, Nebraska does, on the 14th. So
they play who?
Nebraska plays Northern Iowa. Excuse me, I said that poorly.
Oh, I thought you said Notre Dame.
No, UNI.
I was like, Jesus, that's a big game.
So,
okay.
That'll be interesting to see in the non-conference. Yeah, I agree. I think Nebraska will have a better year, but is that good enough for their nonsensical
Probably
fan
not.
base? Probably not.
But, I mean, I don't know. I do like the way that their AD is talking now about NIL. And, like, we can say what we want, but if you watched Fred's games last year, it's like that fan base is nuts. They're like Iowa State fans, just bigger as far as how they support their teams.
Well, if you think about it, it's if Iowa State only had one program in the state. Creighton's a little bit there on the basketball end.
Well, and plus you have like this history, this rich history, like behind you, where you have Heisman's to look at, and national championship trophies, and like I can't believe the support Fred's gotten even after his start there.
Yeah, and he's going to have a nice team again this year. Not going to be as good as Iowa State, but still a nice team. Yeah, I think Nebraska will be that Nebraska-Colorado game will be fun. That's going to be a fun game to watch just to see where everybody is relative to each other, because that was the big game last year when Colorado beat them, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Colorado's back, and then they definitely were not, and neither was Nebraska. One thing you can count on.
And TCU was fool's gold too. It's like
100%.
That's a 5-7 team that everybody freaked out when Dion went and won that game as like a 30-point underdog?
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Yep. I think that's where there's some of these non-conference games will potentially be telling, but one thing you can guarantee, both Colorado and Nebraska will be overhyped for that game. Either way.
Yes.
So you're going to get a lot of headlines for that game, even though it may not matter come the playoff.
We are presented by our friends at Kelderman Manufacturing. Check them out at kelderman.com. I saw Kelderman. I'm going to tweet this out for everybody. Kelderman was like featured on some Motorhead like garage YouTube show.
Yeah, he sent me that too. That was awesome.
Yeah,
his Joe Dirt car.
I haven't watched it yet. I got the Joe Dirt car. Yeah, so you can see what type of folk we're dealing with at Kelderman Manufacturing, kelderman.com. Check them out. MoveWhatMatters.com. You see the wonderful Iowa State University Foundation ads before all of our programs here on Williams and Blum with the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. I had a nice donation made in honor of Dirks, our friend Matt Beatty. I just got a thing from the
how cool is that?
The Companion Animal Fund from the vet school through the foundation. I just got it in the mail. So thanks, Matt. I haven't had a chance to reach out to you yet. Appreciate that. But that's another thing you can do with our friends at the foundation. Make gifts in honor of loved ones and all that good stuff. So
that's
really
so cool.
Whiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment. We are going to look back.
I got my Whiffles hat on. See that?
Plant your independence. Plant Whiffles. Blum wearing a hat with. Blum loves all these ag sponsors because when he goes back to Crystal's family, he can look like he can dress like a man.
100%. They're like, "Oh, you work in the industry?" I'm like, "No." Yeah. Well,
anytime I take Blum to a race, he's always wearing a Whiffles Hybrids hat.
That's you gotta.
Yeah, look, I plant corn.
Don't I look like I know what I'm doing here? No, I was up in Fertile, Iowa today.
The hometown of Kelly Shryock, the greatest dirt modified driver in history.
Well, anyway, I just found it funny that Manly was next to Fertile. Manly, Iowa was next to Fertile. And saw a big old Whiffles complex. I
thought you were going to give me a Kelly Shryock reference right there.
No,
You're
I
really
just
not.
I was driving though, and I saw one of your sprint car guys' truck. I was gonna text you. I didn't. Anyway, he's one
Gio?
of the speaker. So speaker
Oh, Chris Speaker?
with an A. Was it speaker with an A?
No, Speaker is spelled Spieker.
Oh man, there's another.
The
There must be another
56, man.
There must be another speaker out there that had a sprint car.
Chris Speaker is one of the great drivers in the history of the Adams County Speedway. He's a big listener to the show, so shout out to him.
So may not have been. There must be another speaker out there. This was like an 83A.
I'm not kidding. Fertile, Iowa. If you guys are out, Kelly Shryock is his name. He is the greatest dirt modified driver in the history of the United States of America. He's won multiple national championships. The guy is a freaking legend. He's still going in like his 60s.
It's one of my favorite town names in Iowa, Fertile. And there's a town next to it called Manly. Manly and Fertile.
Blum chose today's look back game for our Whiffles Hybrids Big 12 segment. The 2018 win over West Virginia. I believe this was the birthplace of the Juicy Wiggle.
That's right.
At Iowa State. What I remember about this game, so Will Greer was the West Virginia quarterback. This was the game. Who was the nose tackle who was out?
Ray Lima.
Ray Lima was injured. And Isaiah Lee comes in as a true freshman and really and that was when I began my theory on these early Haycock defenses. And it's almost like plug and play with not basically the importance of if you have that guy in the middle, like all of a sudden it's like Leach with the accurate quarterback. It's like his arm strength isn't that big of a deal. He's just got to be accurate and everything else around it will work. And that was Iowa State kicks the shit out of them 30-14. West Virginia is ranked 6th in the country. But it was how they did it that was so impressive. They were down on the front end of the back on the defensive side of the ball, and they got to Will Greer all day, stuffed the run game. Just a really, really impressive, one of the more impressive wins in Campbell's tenure. If you just look at it like by a one game thing, right?
Well, and it was needed because I mean that just let's rewind to 2018. So you get off to a really slow start. We talked about it last week where you had the game canceled with South Dakota State, and that was supposed to be the jump start. Then you lose to Iowa, so you're 0-1. You then play. I'm trying to remember the exact season. You lose to Oklahoma with Kyler Murray. Played okay, but you're now 0-2, and you play a very average, accurate team and kind of coast through that. It was ugly. You go and lose in Fort Worth in a close game, lost by a field goal to TCU. So Iowa State is 1-3 to start 2018, a season with a lot of expectations. And you're going down on the road to Oklahoma State. You have major quarterback questions because Kyle Kempt is hurt. Zeb Nolan's been okay. And then Zeb doesn't perform well in the first couple series in Oklahoma State. And who do you bring in?
Mr. Purdy.
Mr. Purdy. And everything changes from then on. So Purdy goes crazy at Oklahoma State. Everybody remembers that game. But it was still a lot of question of, was that just a one-game luck situation? Because he was just kind of running around. And what's going to be like if a team has a whole week to prepare for him? And West Virginia's in the top 10, and they've got this great quarterback already. And Iowa State just took it to them from the jump. And what struck me, and I wrote about it that week, the next week, was all of the freshmen that Iowa State played in that game. That game reminded me a lot of last year, and it was kind of the start of the build-up because Iowa State had true freshman at quarterback in Brock Purdy, true freshman middle linebacker in Mike Rose, and also the debut in that West Virginia game of a couple other players, Anthony Johnson, Isaiah Lee, and Will McDonald, all guys that would eventually become anchors for that defense. Gary Vaughn played for the first time in that game too. Charlie Kohler caught his first touchdown pass as a Cyclone in that West Virginia game. So all of these things happened, and you're like, wait a second. Not only did we just beat a top 10 team, we just beat a top 10 team with a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, and oh my gosh, the future is bright. And it turned out to be that West Virginia game was kind of a foretelling of the next 3 years for Iowa State football.
A dominant win too. Listen to these stats, okay?
Yep.
Total yards 498 to 152. West Virginia is 1 of 10 on third down. In this game. David Montgomery ran for 189 yards. Iowa State outrushed West Virginia 244 to 52.
Yep.
5.2 yards per carry for Iowa State, 1.9 for West Virginia. You had the time of possession clock on your side by 15 minutes. So a dominant win.
And it was one of the first starts of the career for Colin Newell as a freshman.
Yeah.
And so what you saw then was because the question for Iowa State in that beginning of that season was, these guys aren't very good on offense. Will they ever put it together? Then Purdy comes in. Iowa State has the threat to throw it a little bit more, but as importantly, he could make plays with his legs that Zeb Nolan couldn't. Totally changed the trajectory of the season. And you'll remember that West Virginia game, a lot of those plays were just Brock improvising. I mean, at that point, if you would talk to the staff, they're like, Brock didn't know what he was doing, but he was just making plays. And that's what that offense needed at that time. Iowa State then beats West Virginia going away. And second half is when the birth of Juicy Wiggle came. So it was a night game. The cell phone lights came out and that random Red Foo song. And for some reason it caught on, and the rest is history.
I remember taking calls on that in post game, and I sounded like a 70-year-old man. I'd never heard of that song.
What is this song? Yeah.
What
Yeah, somebody called in. Like,
huh?
What's this Wiggle thing?
What are there? And then like all these kids are texting me, yeah, it's the Juicy Wiggle, and like no. Anyways, good pull. I would have never pulled that game.
Well,
but you're right. Like such a big game. You're right.
Well, and after 2017, when you had that breakout year, Iowa State was teetering at that point where it could have gone the other way that year. You had to back it. Exactly. You could have gone the other way, because if you, let's say, I remember the thought really well. Iowa State's 1-2 going into the game against Oklahoma State. You lose that, then you lose to a top 10 West Virginia team. You're 1-4. And then what happens? Iowa State ended up reeling off 5 wins in a row and got back into the Big 12 race.
Do you remember that one? There was this West Virginia fan on Twitter who was just completely obnoxious that everybody hated.
Yes.
And he was like the realignment guru or whatever.
Yep.
This game, in the amount of shit Iowa State fans gave him, caused him to like delete his feed. Do you remember that? That guy went on, he like guaranteed a win, or he did something. And at this point, this guy's got a following. And
you're right.
I was such a dick. Right after the game, I had it bookmarked and I went and retweeted it. And just thousands of you drunkenly just blew this guy up after that game.
Yeah, I remember that. That guy, it was
dude.
It was an anonymous guy.
The dude.
Yeah. Yep. The dude. Was it the dude?
It was the dude. And he lost it. The guy had like a mental breakdown because Iowa State fans gave him so much shit after that game.
We broke him. And I was just a beautiful day.
Don't mess with Iowa
night.
State fans on the internet. It's a bad combination.
Iowa State then went on to beat Texas Tech the next week, then beat Kansas and Lawrence, then beat Baylor at home in the fight game. And it set up that game against Texas and Tom Herman.
Was this the unprofessional fans Dana Holgerson game?
It was. Yes. There you go. That's right. Good.
One of our best-selling shirts in Cyclone Fanatic history.
Iowa State rushed the field. And partially, that's the reason the student section got moved.
Yep. You guys did it to yourselves.
You're unprofessional fans. Because Iowa State had to say, you basically had to prove to the conference you were trying to do something to mitigate any court or field storming situation. So Iowa State moved the students over because they're further away from the benches then.
I forgot about that. Man, this game had a lot of layers to it.
It did have a lot. Yeah, freshman first start for Brock Purdy that game. Look at him now.
Man. It's funny, like, as significant as that is, when I think of this game, I think of Isaiah Lee and Ray Lima. Like, it's just funny how our minds are wired.
And real quickly, it's because it's been over a year now. I feel for my guy Isaiah Lee and Jairo Brock.
I love those guys.
And
Love
those
them both.
guys who got caught up just unfairly, in my opinion, in that whole situation. Isaiah Lee and Jairo, two of my favorite guys, and I thought both may have a chance at the next level, and it made it really hard for them, to be honest. And I'm not exactly sure what both are up to anymore.
Jairo works for Mechdyne.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jairo does work for Mechdyne, which is awesome on so many levels. But I just, Jake Remsburg is another one of those guys that you felt like that could have gone differently, and their lives were altered for reasons that didn't have to happen. And so, not that you brought up Isaiah, I just hope at some point he and Jairo, and I'm sure there's legal stuff going on in the background, will get their chance to tell their story. Because from what I understand, Isaiah did nothing but cooperate in that whole thing, and by his cooperation actually got him hurt in the end.
He was awesome when he went on a few road trips with us for road shows, and we had a blast getting to know him. And
he's still one of my favorite guys, and I know, he made a mistake. He clearly did. I think there's no doubt he did at some point wager on an Iowa State game, which is a huge no-no. But for him to basically end his football career because of that mistake, and then be thrown in, be arrested for it, essentially, for what ended up being not right. So I just want to give it a shout out to Isaiah. Isaiah, I don't know where you are, pal, but just, hope you're keeping the good fight going, buddy.
Yeah, we love you, man. And that was an iconic game for him. Like, that guy just stepped in.
Out of nowhere. True freshman. Yep.
I remember giving him my game ball afterwards because I was like, damn, like that guy. Who's this guy? Like, he was big time. Yep. All right, fun stuff. I am off to Las Vegas. It's weird going to media days in Las Vegas. Did you see the high in Las Vegas is like 120?
You going to go at the pool?
No.
The adults only?
Staying indoors.
You can go to the cabana, the adults only cabana?
I am not doing any of that. Although I am a little uncomfortable. I'm staying at the Bellagio because that's where they have all the media, and they have like shuttles, and you're dumb not to because of all the the free shuttle and all that. I've never stayed in a nice place like that before. I don't even know how to act. Like, can I wear flip-flops in there, like off the plane?
Just be prepared to spend $25 on a beer. They don't have Ames Lager. They won't have Ames Lager there either, buddy. So
I'll probably, if I'm gonna get a beer, I'll just get an Uber down to Fremont Street. I don't
just pay. Yeah.
I have no need to do that. Like, it doesn't. I would rather go and just drink with the freaks down on Fremont Street if I'm gonna do it. That's just.
I still remember my wallet's still hurting from that Mandalay. We sit the Mandalay Bay for the Iowa State UNLV game. Yeah.
Which I didn't think was that nice.
No, I didn't.
The location was great because it was right across the street, but that was like an average hotel.
Yeah, and then the Michael Jackson show was pretty memorable.
Yeah. Oh. I'm glad you remember it. I don't remember a lot from that night. I just remember, good name drop here, how excited Todd Blythe was when that first person dropped from the ceiling at that Michael Jackson show. Todd could not have been more thrilled to be at the Sir Michael Jackson show.
Yeah, people were like, "Hey, we're going. What is going on? Whoa. What are they doing?" That was We'll go back. Hey, I kind of want to go with you but hey, it's probably best for my health not to.
It will not be that kind of a trip for me.
Just straight business.
Well, I am going to go out to Circa on Tuesday to watch the All-Star game. My friends at Circa got me and Kenny Miller. All right, we got a table there at Circa for the Trent Condon. I think is going to be out there too. So we'll go out and do that. But I'm not. I'll do it there tomorrow night and probably go grab dinner, and then I'm going to work. I have so much of this Big 12 stuff that I feel so blind going into this year. Like it is so hard with all these transfers. Like and all the new teams.
While you're there, honestly, for those looking to just have some fun, like throwing a futures bet on any of those teams from 3 to 10 is not a bad. Iowa State's in there, I would say, because it is such a crapshoot that I think this is gonna be one of those years where there's just not many surprises because everything is a surprise.
And even like the ones who we think like Utah is like the pick.
Yep.
And they should be, but you still have to factor in everybody. The scouting thing is hard. Like it's hard to switch leagues. We've
100%.
seen it over the last 20 years. It's hard.
Well, you even saw Utah played Baylor last year, very bad Baylor team, and Baylor almost beat them. Like should have beat them. So that's one game. One game is sometimes an outlier, but I can't be comfortable with anybody. If anybody's just waxing poetic about how they're guaranteed to win the league, don't listen to them.
I'm like that with Kansas State too.
Yep.
In fact, I would think that they take a step back if anything. But what do I know?
Yeah, it's gonna be I'm pumped up because I'm like, we are 7 weeks away.
Here we go, baby.
Yep, let's go.
He is Brent Blum. Thanks to our friends at Mechdyne for sponsoring Williams and Blum here in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. We appreciate you all. Hope to see you on Saturday night at our event in Bondurant. It'd be great to see you all there. We will save you an Ames lager. For Brent Blum, my name is Chris Williams, and we will be back on Saturday. Wednesday's show is on Saturday, live at 9:30 from the Rocco Beck Camp in Perry.